Welcome to our program, A Conversation with a Community Leader. I'm Cary, the former mayor of Bellevue in Bremerton, Washington, and I am the host for the show Conversation with Community Leaders, sponsored by Leadership Kitsap. And today I'm really pleased to have my old friend John Powers as our community leader guest. And John serves now as the executive director of the Kitsap Economic Development Alliance. And I happen to know, John, you were also the mayor of the second largest city in this state, Spokane, Washington. So you and I have that in common. But I'm glad to have you here. You're a prime example of a community leader that's creating change in our community every day. And so we're going to have a nice conversation today about that. So welcome.
Thank you, Cary.
Good to have you here.
Really a pleasure to be with you this morning. I'm not sure whether to call you Cary as a longtime friend or Mr. Mayor or Mr. Commissioner or Mr. Community Leader, because you've worn all those hats, and it's great to be with you today.
Today I'm the host.
But today you're the host.
There you go. So why don't we start out, John? I want to get into what you're doing in Kitsap County now and how you're impacting the county, but how'd you start out in life? Where are you from?
Well, my hometown is Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, a fairly small town of about 5,000 people. It's about an hour north of Chicago and about a half hour from Milwaukee. Small town. My dad was a Main Street merchant. He ran a little grocery shop and butcher shop, and my mom was a nurse, an RN in the local county consolidated hospital. Two siblings, two older sisters, although the one closest to me, Pat, I call her my Irish twin because we're only 11 months apart. But in small town Wisconsin, I was able to feel connected. I understood what community was about early on in life. It's about knowing your neighbor and helping your neighbor in need. And I also knew a little bit about how the community functioned because my father was involved in the Lions Club and on the Water Commission, and friends of his served in the city council. So I understood what small town community leadership was about, and it's really about selfless acts of helping others beyond your own needs.
That's the days when neighborhoods were neighborhoods and everybody knew their neighbor and they took over pie to somebody when they moved in, right?
That's exactly right.
That's middle America. And
I graduated high school in 1970 from Badger High in Wisconsin. And
you play sports?
I did. I played football. I was pretty good at it, and I tried
well, you
my
weren't
hand.
a lineman, that's for sure.
Well, as a matter of fact, I was.
Oh, you were?
I was the center and the center linebacker, and I tried my hand as a walk-on at Notre Dame, but I found out how good I wasn't.
Okay, you just threw out Notre Dame.
I found out how good I wasn't in South Bend, but I loved the game, and I coached it for 15 years as a youth sport volunteer.
Great. So you went to Notre Dame?
I did. Graduated in 1974 with a degree in finance.
I've never been on that campus, but someday I guess that would be a bucket list thing, right?
I think we should
do it. The Golden Dome?
We should do it together, Mr. Mayor. In fact, next week I'm going back for my 45th class reunion.
What? Wow. You're not that old, John.
You can do the math.
What'd you major in?
Finance.
Okay.
Business school, finance, and that's really been a part of my career ever since.
So at some point in college you decided you wanted to become what?
Well, interesting. When I first went there, I thought I wanted to be a football player for life, but that didn't pan out. But shortly after examining all the courses, business is where I gravitated because I understood it from my father, who was a small businessman. I understood about commerce in general, and I wanted to learn more about it. And within management and marketing and accounting, finance was the one that kind of grabbed my attention, and I've used it throughout my career. I practiced law for 20 years, and my financial background helped me there. I served as the mayor, and my financial background helped me there. And now in the economic development world, it's always involved when helping clients, which are really small businesses already here in the community. We try and connect them to new resources or new relationships, and oftentimes it's about the capital.
All right, John, you're getting ahead of me here.
It's about the capital.
What's game day like on Notre Dame?
It is full of tradition and pageantry and excitement as the band, the marching band, weaves through the campus and all the students follow it over to the stadium. It's magical.
Yeah.
It is really magical.
Yeah, it is one of the, if you're a football fan, it's one of the 4 or 5 greatest football games in America.
I would agree with that,
yeah,
Cary.
That's for sure. So I know you were a lawyer, so you must have gone to law school somewhere.
I did. 10 years after graduating from Notre Dame with a business degree, I graduated from Gonzaga University with a law degree in 1984.
Did you go to Spokane to go to Gonzaga?
I did.
Is that what took you to Spokane?
My late wife Bonnie and I both were looking to pursue postgraduate education, and she
By the
obtained
way,
a
I knew
master's
your
there.
late wife well, one of the great ladies.
Absolutely. Thank you
Yeah,
for
you're
mentioning that.
welcome.
A real leader.
Yeah, we all miss her.
We'll talk about leadership today, and
Yep.
Bonnie taught me an awful lot about that.
Yeah. Well, our spouses are good partners, and a lot of times they're our best friends, so
Absolutely.
I know how that works.
Absolutely the case.
So you decided to go to Gonzaga.
We did.
That took you to Spokane.
Exactly right. And after graduating, I stayed in Spokane with the firm that I'd interned for, Payne Hamblin, one of the larger firms in town. And I was there for nearly 20 years.
Wow.
And my
What
practice
kind of practice?
it was around financial reorganization. So I worked with both creditors and debtors, and oftentimes the company that was in financial trouble, to try and restructure them, to recapitalize them and kind of refocus them on their core mission. I loved that work. It was like being part of the business team in a company like that, and that too has served me as I work with businesses that aren't necessarily in financial poor health, but businesses that are dynamic and growing and looking for new change. You have to do a lot of things to move a company forward.
During that time, were you able to kind of establish a set of values and core beliefs that kind of led you through the rest of the leadership roles you had?
Yes, and one of those core beliefs that I've tried to put into practice came to me from my my 4-year roommate at Notre Dame, Dave McCarthy, who had grown up in a very political family. His dad was, in fact, the senior general counsel for the Pennsylvania Railroad and did a lot of lobbying in Washington. So Mac knew about politics. And he told me, as I considered seeking the mayor's office in Spokane, he said, "Speak from the heart. Speak from the heart and speak the truth, and you will lead. Don't take someone else's script. Don't take someone else's idea and claim credit for it. Tell them what's on your heart and what you believe in, and people will follow you when you empower them with that, as opposed to tight scripting. Tell them what they want to hear as opposed to what they need to know."
Yeah, I wish we saw more of that in our political discourse today, because my fear is that people are pretty adverse to taking risk, and they stay in that neutral, safe zone, and they kind of just try to be nice to everyone. And I think we've lost a lot of that good debate and discourse and how we create change. So let me go back to Spokane a minute, and then we're going to get on to what brought you over here. Being in Spokane must have reminded you a lot of where you grew up. Spokane is a pretty, I would say, Midwest kind of a city.
It is. It has that Midwestern kind of culture.
Right.
People knowing people on Main Street, if you would. It's a lot larger at 225,000, but yet it's a community that is still intimate. People know each other, and they know the entire community, and so it was a great opportunity to serve in a community where my wife and I had raised our family and pursued our careers for, well, a little over 20 years before I ran for mayor.
What got you thinking about running for mayor, for gosh sakes?
Well, that's a long story. I'll try and cut to the chase. There was a big divide in the community over a downtown real estate redevelopment project that had fallen on financial hard times.
I remember that project.
And people turned to me to ask kind of my view on how it might be resolved. And I am much more a mediator and a compromiser than a gotta have it my way kind of guy, because I think solutions are found in the middle, not on the extremes. So as we looked at that, and I was working with other business leaders and professionals in the community to find a way out, we changed the form of government. In fact, the government probably changed its form to a full-time mayor due to this dispute that had been so divisive.
You were a city manager form before then.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And so
I'd actually done some work in Spokane before
just before I was elected. I remember that.
Yeah.
So what was interesting was as we searched for candidates that could step into a new form of government as a leader, my name came up from time to time, and I'm saying I'm happy practicing law and raising my family, and we'll find the right candidate.
But you must have been pretty active in the community.
I was. I was a graduate of Leadership Spokane, which helped me launch into the community. And to To this day, I stay in touch with members of that class that I was part of. I was involved in our parish, I was involved in our neighbor, I was involved in youth sports, I was involved in the bar association.
So you're a community activist of kind.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So in any event, I decided to take a look, but
the
before I did,
politics in Spokane are pretty conservative, right?
Well-
I mean, that used, what are the politics in Spokane?
they would be center-right in the main, but it also has a strong tradition of progressive social service, community welfare. So I think when you blend the two, you can move a community forward, which I think we did in many respects when I had the opportunity to serve as mayor. And eventually the dispute did get resolved. It was after I'd left office, but it resolved itself pretty much along the lines I'd hoped it would, where all the players needed to pony up and provide more capital on
So you
what had been a
came in and
default.
took on a difficult problem that was very controversial in a community. That's a hard way to come into a job, John.
Well, you gotta hit the ground running, and I think we did. We got a lot of good things done. We brought in some new senior leaders into the administration, and we changed our comprehensive plan to focus on what is now known as the University District, old railroad yards on the river's edge that really needed to be not just cleaned up but redeveloped. Today in that University District, after we amended the comp plan to support it, there's over 2 million square feet of higher education facilities. There's 4 universities there, and there's 2 medical schools in Spokane today because the community focused on that opportunity.
Spokane is an emerging force in the Northwest, and I'm sure your administration got a lot of that started, so that was good. Do you miss being in public office?
Well, you know, in many respects, yes, but I put
Because
the
most
big but in
people
there.
would say you're a natural.
The but is this: I think I make my best contributions working directly in the private sector. That's kind of who I am by nature. The public sector, as you know, Cary, it takes a lot of patience. And in the public arena, getting to just 50% plus one over time is a victory. In the private sector, you have got to go after your goals and objectives on a timely basis, and you better achieve 80, 85, 90%, or your partners or your employees or your banker's going to say, wait a minute, you didn't quite hit the mark here. So that's where my energy and I think my personality are best contributed, although I so am grateful for the opportunity I had to serve in public service as the mayor. I think my best fit is private sector, business. Let's go get something done.
Well, it was a great experience. You had a great 20 years in Spokane. So what brought you to, I know you first came to Seattle and then to here. Why don't you, let's go through that chronology.
Well, after leaving.
What brought John Powers, how did John Powers get from Spokane to Kitsap County?
After leaving the mayor's office, I decided I didn't want to return to the practice of law. I wanted to stay in development work, which had kind of caught my interest when I was in the mayor's office. And the Seattle King County EDC, Economic Development Council, was looking for a new leader, and a leader that could bring some new energy, some new vision, and recapitalize it and refocus it. So I got a call from a couple folks I knew in Seattle, and they said, you should take a look at this job. I said, you know, that's great, but I'm not interested in moving to Seattle. I've been here 20 years. My family's here. They said, you know, it's kind of a reorganization assignment. They need someone to come in and really get it rolling again. So I said, well, I'll go over and meet with them. So I met with Greg Nichols, mayor of Seattle, Ron Sims, the county executive at the time.
Oh, you met with all the power guys.
Host of business leaders, a friend of ours, David Allen, Sam Anderson, master builders, just a lot of folks. And as I looked at the opportunity to come in and reorganize what was then almost a 40-year-old organization, it kind of sparked my interest again. It was a big challenge. So I said, I'll come in as a consultant and I'll help you reorganize. They said, no, you need to be part of this community. So Bai and I had a long conversation about that. And to her loving credit, she said, okay, if that's what you really want to do, I'll follow you there. So we both moved to Seattle, moved right downtown. She continued to teach. She was a public school teacher for 25 years of our 41 years of marriage.
So you were
boom,
urbanite. You were living downtown Seattle.
Right downtown, corner 2nd and Broad, and loving it.
Yeah.
And but
wasn't the chamber, John, the big player in economic development work in Seattle for years and years? Where did the EDC? How did you guys work together?
They were the big political dog for sure from a business perspective. But EDC work, like here in Kitsap at the Kitsap Economic Development Alliance, is about one-on-one business client consulting. So you have a file open with the focus on a business, confidential information that's not for public. So the work we provide to our local businesses as a business consultant would, as a lawyer or an accountant, is tell me about your business, tell me about your issues, let's work together and find a path forward where you can stay here and grow here and prosper here. A lot like practicing law, and that's a much different dynamic than a chamber, which is a big policy focus as opposed to individual business.
Retaining and recruiting.
That's correct.
That's what an EDC
Most of
does.
our work is around business retention, keep them here, and grow them here, expansion. And then we also do recruiting, but that's the smaller portion of the time and resources we devote to economic development.
So what's your observation about what's going on in Seattle? There was an article in the paper you and I spoke about where their growth is their second fastest growing city in America. And
Yes.
they're about 2.7% a year.
This morning's paper, right?
How long, this can't keep up forever, obviously. And what's driving it, and what are the threats you think they face?
What's driving it is innovation and talent, and the search for talent. Seattle and the Seattle Metro Core, including Bellevue and Redmond, has really become a mecca for innovators in the technology and related fields. And it's not just Amazon, it's all the companies around them. Avalara is a great example. Avalara started here in Kitsap County on Bainbridge Island. When I first met their leadership team 8 years ago when I came to Kitsap, I think their employment base was 200, maybe 250, and they're all right there.
The impact of that, John, is that the average home in Seattle is now $700,000. Right. A person working in downtown doing a regular job making under $100,000 cannot afford to live in Seattle. I mean, that's pretty clear. They have a homeless problem. They have a congestion problem. They're facing lots of challenges that this new council or the people in government today are going to have to figure out how to solve some of these problems.
Well, and it's impacting the entire region, not just Seattle. It's impacting
And that was
Kitsap.
my next point I'd like you to talk to is, how is this going to impact Kitsap County, what's going on in Seattle right now?
So I'll give you an example, back to Avalara. Avalara grew into the point that they could no longer find all the tech talent they had for years, and their tech talent was coming out of the West Sound. Kitsap Peninsula and beyond, and both the peninsula and the island, they had 250 people, and about 50 lived on Bainbridge and 200 came from the region. But they grew to such an extent, they knew they would have to move the business to downtown Seattle to continue to draw tech talent at the numbers they needed. But most of the people in the company stayed here. So they're commuting to downtown Seattle. The new employees are coming in, but...
So are we becoming over here more of a commuter community to people working in downtown Seattle?
No, we aren't. As a matter of fact, we're an innovative center here. Just recently, 2 publications, both 24/7 Wall Street and Verizon Business, dubbed Kitsap, the MSA of Bremerton and Seattle, as the leading innovative community in Washington State and the second leading innovative community in the entire country behind the Silicon Valley, because our talent pool here of engineers, defense-based engineers, have created an immeasurable amount of intellectual property, new ideas. So on a per capita basis, Kitsap County is home to great new ideas and innovation. So we aren't just a bedroom community, we're a creator of the next generation as well.
My experience in life is even if some of the people are going to be moving over to Kitsap for housing,
yes,
because of the cost of housing in Seattle, those people eventually look for a way to establish their own businesses or to work near where they live.
Exactly.
And my opinion is, and I think you and I agree, that kind of growth is going to be pretty consistent over here for a while, given what's going on in Seattle. But we've only got a few more minutes. Let's talk a little bit about what you do here, the KITA organization.
Please.
You've built a very powerful board, maybe the most powerful public board in Kitsap County. How do you do that? And what do you see as the challenges and the opportunities in the next 10, 15 years?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for serving on that board of directors.
Enjoy it.
Our organization, the Kitsap Economic Development Alliance, oftentimes called KITA, is a 36-year-old not-for-profit Washington State corporation. And under our mission and bylaws, we are to be governed.
So there are other KETAs around the state.
There's 37 across Washington State.
So you get some state funding.
We do. We are the state's local arm.
Okay.
But back to the secret sauce of a board, in my estimation, and we have a large one. We have 36 members on our board, 18 elected officials and 18 senior business leaders. And they come together to drive the mission of the organization, which is to grow jobs here and attract investment and new businesses. And let me say this, it's the most important asset on our corporate balance sheet. Our board leadership is critical. It's oftentimes looked as an afterthought in the workforce development field, but leadership is a critical component of workforce development and leadership. And we have that on our board, and it makes a huge difference. The board owns it. When I came here 8 years ago, my sense was the board didn't quite see it as their baby, if you would. It was like, okay, we got a staff and we got a director, and they were good directors, but they weren't bought in. Before I accepted this opportunity, I turned to my board leadership and said, this is your organization, and if you want to see it succeed and grow, you've got to own it, you've got to invest in it, you've got to put your hands in the wheel and help me drive the car down the road.
The problem you have, John, is you don't have any passion for this job, right? I just want to say I think you've done a terrific job. The organization, I think, was floundering, and you've come in here and given it energy and passion, and you've attracted a lot of the best and brightest people in this community. And I think the organization, I was a little bit of a critic of the organization.
We had some conversations about that, Cary.
For a while.
Yes,
but
we did.
I will say I think you've turned it around, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And we've got to close here in a minute. Any last word about what you see as the best opportunities we've got in Kitsap County in the next 10 years, quickly?
So when we talk to people that are not familiar with Kitsap County, we start by how it's part of the Seattle region. It's a 4-county region from Snohomish to King to Pierce over here to Kitsap. We're the smallest by far and away. King County's 2 million, Snohomish is 700,000. 250,000. We're only 5% of the action, but we punch above our fighting weight as to how we contribute to the prosperity and economy. We're a defense-based economy,
we're still
but
basically defense-based.
And more. And defense is spawning technology and manufacturing and other sectors. So when I talk about Kitsap as a product,
You got about
selling
30
a product,
seconds, John.
I talk about first how we're in that region, and then second, we're the best part of that region. If you want balance in your lifestyle, if you want natural beauty, if you want 254 miles of saltwater shoreline and a green canopy,
Quality of life.
you want to look at Kitsap. Its proximity to Seattle is important, but it's not the reason you want to be here. You want to live here and work here and prosper here, and you can do that in Kitsap County, whether you're down in South County, Central, or North, or on Bainbridge Island. We have a lot of opportunity for who's here and who's coming here.
John, it's been a pleasure to have you on the program. This is a good example. John Powers is a good example of people in our community that are leaders, that are creating change every day, that are making a difference, and it's my pleasure to have a conversation with you, John Powers.
Thank you, Cary. On Kitsap.
On Kitsap.
Leadership Kitsap is our community's civic leadership program. Leadership Kitsap fosters and empowers educated, prepared, and engaged community leaders. For over 25 years, we have cultivated leaders that work collaboratively to create positive change, dedicated to making our community a better place to work and live. We expose our class to Kitsap's leaders across public, private, and nonprofit sectors. We're happy to bring many of the conversations with these leaders to you. Strong leaders build strong communities.